Okay, Alicia, this is number 18. You had 3x minus 2 over x cubed minus 1. And the thing that you have to remember for this one, you try to factor the denominator, and x cubed minus 1 should look familiar. It should look like difference of cubes. So that's the one thing you have to remember is when you factor x to the third minus 1, it's going to look like x minus 1. Let me write it out here. It's going to look like x minus 1 times x squared plus x plus 1 when we factor that out. X squared plus x plus 1 does not factor, so that's as far as you can factor that out. So as far as factorable terms, this one only has 2. You have x minus 1 and you have x squared plus x plus 1. Now, when you're doing this, the rule is that when we're going to rewrite this as a over x minus 1, when we look at x has a power of 1. So, oops, that erased it. Hang on just a second. Didn't mean to do that. X has a power of 1 here, so a is going to have a power that's 1 less than that. It's going to be a power of 0. So, when we go to our next part, it has to be 1 power less, if this makes sense. So if you look here, our highest power is 2, which means we have to have a linear power here. So we have to add an x to it. So anytime you have x squared in the denominator that can't be factored, above it you're going to have a bx plus c. If that, I don't know if that makes sense at all. But so when we break this down, we know that we have an a over x minus 1 and a bx plus c over x squared plus x plus 1. That's pretty much all you need to remember, is that if it's just a normal factor like x minus 1, you just put an a or a b or whatever above it. If you have a squared that's not factorable, put a bx plus c or, you know, dx plus e or wherever you are in that kind of a problem. So we have a over x plus 1 plus bx plus c over x squared plus x plus 1, and that is all going to be equal to 3x minus 2 over x minus 1 times x squared plus x plus 1. So we're going to multiply everything by x minus 1 times x squared plus x plus 1, and then we'll cancel out. So what we're going to be left with is a times x squared plus x plus 1, and then bx plus c is going to be multiplied by x minus 1, because the x squared plus x plus 1 is going to cancel out, and then everything cancels out over on the other side of the equal sign, so we are left with 3x minus 2. From here, we're going to just start plugging in. So the easiest thing to plug in is when we look over here, we have an x minus 1. So if we let x equal 1, we can just see what we get. So let x equal 1. So if x equals 1, then we're going to have 1 squared plus 1 plus 1. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So we end up getting 3a. And then b times 1 is b, so b plus c times 0, because 1 minus 1 is 0, so that's just going to kind of cancel out, and then 3 times 1 minus 2. So what we really end up with is 3a equals 1, or in other words, a equals 1/3. So far we've solved for a, now we need to figure out what b and c are going to be. So from here we just kind of plug in values. So we're going to let x equal 0, because that's always my next go-to. And if we let x equal 0, then we're going to have a times 0 plus 0 plus 1 is just 1, so a times 1 is a. And then moving on to b times 0 is 0, so b goes away. And then c, we have c, and then x minus 1 is going to be 0 minus 1, which is -1. So we have c times -1 equals 3 times 0 is 0, minus 2 gives us negative 2. So we have a plus c times negative 1 equals negative 2. We just figured out that a is equal to 1/3. So we have 1/3 minus c equals negative 2. So we can solve for c and find that c is equal to 2 1/3, or 7/3. So now we know c is 7/3. Now we need to plug one more value for x. So we're just going to pick any value for x. And actually I came to the next page to do this. So let's see, I just repeated, sorry, I just had to remember what I'm doing here. So I just repeated, this is what we had before, and then now we're going to let x equal negative 1. I just picked negative 1 because it just seemed like a nice number to use. I don't know. Because we had 1 and we had 0, so I picked negative 1. So we have a, and then if we plug negative 1 in, you get negative 1 squared is 1, minus 1 plus 1 is just 1. Okay, then b times negative 1 is going to be negative b, and then plus c, and then negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2, equals 3 times negative 1 minus 2, which gives me negative 5. So 1 plus 1 minus 1 gives me 1 times a, and then negative b plus c times negative 2 is going to be 2b minus 2c equals negative 5. Now we need to go back, and we can just kind of go back to the other page where we had c was 7/3 right here, and we have a is 1/3. So just remembering a is 1/3 and c is 7/3. And so coming back to where we are, let's see, this is where we were right here. Sorry, I'm just kind of playing this by ear. Hopefully I'm not throwing you way off. So a is 1/3 and c is 7/3. So now we can just plug those in. So 1/3 plus 2b minus 2 times 7/3 equals negative 5. So from here, 1/3 plus 2b minus 14/3 equals negative 5. Minus 14/3 plus 1/3 is going to be minus 13/3. So then we'll add plus 13/3 over here. Negative 5 is negative 15/3. So negative 15/3 plus 13/3 gives us 2b is equal to negative 2/3. I wrote all this out, and then I have to kind of remember what I wrote, which I don't always remember exactly what I wrote, so that's why I'm kind of stumbling a little bit. So 2b equals negative 2/3, so b is equal to negative 1/3. And then that gives us our solution. If you remember, this was what we had at the beginning, was this part right here, and we said that a is equal to 1/3, b was equal to negative 1/3, and c was equal to 7/3. So when we write our answer, it's going to be 1/3 over x plus 1 plus negative 1/3 x plus 7/3 over x squared plus x plus 1. Kind of confusing. Hopefully I was able to simplify it a little bit for you. I know I'm going fast. I just kind of speed up when I'm trying to explain it. So let me know if you have questions.